that we still have a deficit in terms of supplying our fish stock, both locally as well as to provide for exports. Further, we also see that government to review and amend the Animal Health and Animal Identifications Act. Actually, there's a lot of there's actually a lot of to curb this animal theft. Animal theft, which has been basically a problem, can actually now be handled with mandatory identification for different livestock types. So the formulation of these two policies basically will ensure that government's effort towards improving productivity within the sector. Lastly, we also seek that to reduce business costs by authorizing applications and issuing licenses, permits, certificates, and other authorization through a single electronic window will be very critical. What are some of the recommendations we are providing with regards to the spending in the agricultural sector? So we see that smallholder farmers who have been actually facing challenges to market, PMRC recommends that extension services should not only be a product but be market oriented. So we think that for these interventions that have been done towards the extension service, it is important that one of the ingredients should be that to stimulate marketing efforts towards farmers. Government also needs to explore the public-private partnership to leverage on financing, share the risk fairly, develop innovations, and create access for more players within the sector. Because I think one of the key ingredients towards agriculture development is actually low access to financing. Government is also urged to timely provide disbursements of budgetary allocation towards the extension services to facilitate the enhancement of farmers' agricultural production. I think we can all note that in the previous past, likely in the last season, we could see that no one would actually say that 1.8 metric ton per hectare is sufficient enough to say that we are increasing our productivity. So some of the measures like R&D and extension are quite very critical in terms of increasing our productivity to raise our yields from those low doldrums to an acceptable levels. In the mining sector.
So before you go to the mines, just know that maybe we can take us quickly. You have about 6 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the mining sector, again, government wants to ramp up production to reach to 3 million metric tons in the next decade. So basically, what are some of the measures that government has basically provided in this budget? So one is the restructuring of the mineral royalty regime concerning copper, reduction in property transfer tax to 7.5% from 10%, then establishing a mining regulatory institution to regulate the oversight of the sector. Again, we can see that the 8th National Development Plan has also included some of the things that will be done in order to support the budget. So we see that formalization of key players in the sector to assist with the access to affordable financing and foreign investment will also be quite critical, apart from joint ventures. Provision of support through the supply of necessary equipment and training will also be critical to increase that production. To achieve this, government has allocated 50 million towards the subsector to facilitate artisanal and small-scale miners to access equipment and training. What are some of the recommendations? We also see that we are urging government to timely and adequately provide funding towards the regulatory institution. We also urge that the Ministry of Finance, or the Ministry of Mines and Minerals Development, needs to formulate an exploration strategic plan to guide for the mineral exploration in the country, which can be used to attract funding towards exploration. To actualize the 2022 and 2022-2023 national budget, proposed tax changes the Ministry of Mines and Minerals Development needs to expedite the review of policies such as the mines and minerals development, as this will actually be able to push, to attract, or to provide a framework that will attract more investment in the sector. In the manufacturing sector, we also see that government has continued to promote the multi-facility economic zones to broaden the country's industrial and manufacturing base. We can see that the M phase has been a success, attracting more than 30 companies with a total pledged investment of 230 million and 400 jobs in the last year. However, PMRC holds that $50,000 threshold required to operate in the M phase and industrial yards still remain a barrier to the local content. Further intervention in the M phase and industrial yards should form an infrastructural support and the minimum infrastructure required to ensure that issues such as energy, telecommunication, roads, water, and sewerage are taken into consideration. So some of the things also will be critical in terms of promoting value addition and manufacturing to sort of be able to raise revenue, and this is well supported in the 8th National Development Plan. The above listed measures are actually notable scores concerning this particular strategy. We also see that the Continental African Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, was a notable absence from the budget. It was not actually mentioned as to how the country will basically play the role and how the country may benefit from this aspect. So the Africa Continental Free Trade Area also continues to hold much potential to aid growth for Zambia. Zambia's trade in the medium to long term, and will provide the kind of market linkages that the 8th National Development Plan basically envisions. In the tourism sector, some of the critical measures that government will undertake includes piloting the tourism single window in Livingstone, promoting tourism development by providing incentives to attract investments in the sector, then working towards increasing international flights. Anyway, these measures are actually key to sort of attract more tourists, especially that we have faced low tourist inflows in the country in the previous past, especially when we had COVID-19. Some of the recommendations that we urge government will be to provide additional promotion packages to boost tourism traffic. PMRC also looks at government to expand the quality of tourism training. This will basically play a critical role in ensuring that the quality of services that we provide are to the highest standard. Government is further aid to adopt new measures to incentivize and support investors in the existing and new facilities to stimulate investment. In the human and social development,
sorry, I may need to cut you. I know the members have gone through some of it, so maybe due to maybe the limitation in terms of time, I see we were remaining with just a few items before you conclude. That's under education, water and sanitation, environmental sustainability, and good governance environment. Honorable members, we wish we could have had enough time with these colleagues of ours. They are key, but you have perused through at least their submission. Any key questions? Maybe for about 5 minutes. Do you have any questions? So I will take one from Honorable Piri. Honorable Piri, you can start.
Chair, thank you so much. And PMRC, thank you so much for your presentation. My question is on the table on page, the third, because I don't see numbers here, where there is a resource envelope. And in particular, it is on the domestic revenue. which in the budget we have seen a larger portion of the resources will come from the domestically. Now my question is, don't you think this will have a negative impact on the citizens, knowing that these monies will come from their pocket? Don't you think this might have a negative impact on the people? Thank you so much.
Okay, PMRC?
No, thank you very much, Honorable P, for that. When we're looking at the domestic envelope, I think it must mention that there are also issues to do with corporate income tax, there's pay, and when you look at statistics from ZRA, most of the taxes are actually from the corporate income tax, and especially on the mining sector. And so going forward, government is trying to expedite domestic resource mobilization, which we've also seen from the payee aspect, whereby the large bracket hasn't been reduced from 37.5%. But looking at the exemption threshold as well as the reduction in the second bracket, it will actually also improve with regards to domestic disposable income from about 600 in the 2022 budget to 1 billion in the 2023 budget. So for the measures that have been put in place, I think those actually are more on the citizens' perspective, and also looking at the theme of this budget, looking at stimulating economic growth through improving livelihoods. I think the government has really touched so much on creating tax reforms or tax measures that will not only benefit government itself, but also the general citizens. Like I had mentioned, when you're looking at the tax losses that government stands to gain, it's about 4.3 billion against the 9.2 billion that are going to actually accrue. So for those, most of the tax measures that have been put in place also work well towards the general public, as opposed to maybe last year's budget where most of the tax measures were leaning mostly towards the mining sector. But for these ones, I think we also have seen that there will be an increase with regards to domestic disposable income. And also maybe I would just encourage you, maybe when it comes to also viewing the ZRA page, you can actually input your gross and just see how the proposed measure is also going to benefit us as general citizens. And I think there's a company, PwC, they actually did that with regards to seeing how it would trickle down towards the general citizens. They had put an example of 10,000 gross rate of 10,000 kwacha, where the person who would earn about 10,000 kwacha can actually earn 400 kwacha with regards to that move. So the moves that have been put in place, I think they're also touching the welfare of general citizens, and we've also seen that the tax exemption threshold will also increase the number of people that will be exempted to about 21,000, so that also works well with that regard.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take the last two questions. The first one will be from Honorable Remember Mutale, and then the last one from Honorable Jamba. Then we'll close.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is on this table, where your government is proposing to spend about 444 million on recreation, culture, and religion. I just want to know, to find out from you, because there is so much an increase from 156.4 million to about this 444. What would be the economic benefit if government spends this amount?
Okay, Honorable Jamba.
Thank you, Chair. We just need some clarity and help. How would you put the people who are saying that, because from the question he asked, it's like government is trying to get money from taxes in terms of pay as you earn and whatever, and then on the other hand, you hear government is saying, oh, these mines, they have given them waivers, like trying to incentivize them. And someone will say, no, it seems the government wants to punish its own people and let the foreigners gain. Your organization, how would you caution us? How would you help us balance this equation?
Thank you. PMRC, you can respond to those two and then we'll close.
Maybe just to begin with the recreation, culture, and religion, the amount that has been increased is basically looking at our tourism sector. We actually want to improve on our tourism products as a country. So one of the things that actually attracts tourists is also issues to do with our culture as well as recreation. That's why we've seen this increase. So this is also one of the measures that government is trying to look at as a way of improving our tourism products, which will also attract more tourists, which will benefit the tourism industry. Then when it comes to the second question, looking at waivers, I think some of in the 2022 budget, the proposal that was given by government of making mineral royalty deductible from corporate income tax was as a way of installing international best practice, and also we had actually made an ambitious move to increase our copper production from 800,000 metric tons to 300 million metric tons. And going forward as well, we've also seen other tax measures that have been put towards the mining sector, which is going to make government lose approximately 2.8 billion with regards to those waivers. But one thing that we must note is, even at the beginning I mentioned that most of our income, corporate income, comes from the mining sector, and they are the major contributors towards this. So government is actually trying to put in place measures as to improve the mining sector, creating our mining tax regime more competitive, bringing in more players, which also, once that is done, it will trickle down to the general citizens. So it's something that is going to be done in the long run. We might not benefit from the short run effects of those moves, but it's also just going to be in terms of the long run. But this year, I think government has also tried to put in place those concerns. You can even look at the artisanal, small-scale and artisanal mining sector, where government has also incentivized those areas. And also for the payee, from the way it's just been calculated, we've also seen an increase. So it's for the payee, it's actually, previously I thought as though it's just from the gross pay, that way you just do 37% of that, but that's not the way it is. So for each tax brand, you're exempted for each 4,800 that a person makes. That person does not accrue any taxes. In the second tax band, it's been reduced from 25% to 20%. So within that threshold, the person is only going to contribute 20%. So we can actually also see that there's been a reduction and incentive that has been given towards the domestic or maybe salaried workers. So with tax measures, I must say that they are a bit, they've cut at all sectors and will have a trickle-down effect whilst effectively implemented.
Okay. Maybe just to add on the aspect of mining, I think, so the incentives that have been given are basically, these are some of the things that the mining houses have been crying out. They've been saying that it has been quite expensive to invest in this country, and now government has given, so it's now time for the government also to see that, they reciprocate by, one, compliance in terms of paying the right taxes, because I think we could even see the recent presentation that ZRI made showed that compliance by a number of mining houses has been quite poor in the past, but including not just the mining houses, but even other business firms. We are actually below 50% in terms of compliance. So what is critical is that you would be able to provide oversight to see to it that do these measures basically create the sort of impact that we deserve as a country.
Okay, honorable members, this is where we come to the end of our interaction with PMRC. PMRC, thank you very much for finding time to come and appear before this committee. Your presentation and your submissions will be taken seriously by this committee. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, that which was conferred on you earlier on in terms of the immunity, also ends here. So thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Parliament is open to members of the general public who may wish to undertake familiarization tours of Parliament buildings, either in groups or as individuals, or to attend sittings of the House or parliamentary committees. All those wishing to visit Parliament can either write to the Clerk of the National Assembly or simply come to Parliament buildings. Upon arrival at Parliament buildings, visitors are required to identify themselves. A passport or national registration card is required for identification purposes. Those to whom permission is granted to sit in the visitors' galleries will be ushered to the appropriate galleries by protocol officers. Before gaining access to the galleries, all visitors will be issued with passes by the Security Department at the Media and Visitors Center. All visitors to parliamentary premises are required to wear smart attire, either office or casual wear. Furthermore, visitors are not allowed to take with them into the galleries such articles as walking sticks, umbrellas, briefcases, or parcels of any type, newspapers, magazines, or cellular phones. All such articles must be deposited at the reception desk. Visitors to the galleries are given copies of the order paper, which shows the order in which the business for that particular day would be taken.
Okay, honorable members, before us is the Governor Bank of Zambia with the team. Governor, good morning.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable members.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for finding time to appear before the expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee, which was constituted following the presentation of the 2023 budget by the Minister of Finance. And as always, you are one of our key partners in these issues. So again, we have called upon you to come and appear before the committee. So what we'll do is, before we start, you can do the introductions on your side. And as you can see from our end, you are quite many, as it is an expanded committee. So I'll ask the honorable members maybe to introduce themselves at the point of when we are doing the questions. For now, just introduce your team and then we'll start.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable members. My name is Denny Kalialia, Governor Bank of Zambia. With your permission, colleagues will introduce them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, and good morning, Honorable members. My name is Reka Chifue Muhango, Deputy Governor Administration.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members of Parliament. My name is Emmanuel Palm, advisor to the Governor.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, and good morning, honorable members. I'm Jonathan Chipiri, Director Economics.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Gladys Chongomposha. I'm the Director in charge of bank supervision.
Good morning. My name is Isaac Muhanga. I'm Director Financial Markets at the bank.
Thank you. That side.
Morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, members of Parliament. My name is Martin Mwinga. I'm the Executive Assistant to the Governor.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. My name is Prudence Nkamba. I'm the Executive Assistant to the Deputy Governor Administration.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Besnat Mwanza. I'm Assistant Director in charge of Communications.
Okay, thank you very much. Governor Kaputkov of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity as and when you are appearing before the committee. So take advantage of that. Meaning whatever you say whilst appearing before this committee can never be used against you in any court of law. And just to indicate that we are live on Parliament TV, so our people out there are watching the proceedings. So what we would do, or maybe on behalf of the members, at least I can introduce myself. My name is Fred Dijatila, Member of Parliament for Momba constituency and also Chairperson for the Expanded Budget Committee. So we'll give you, say, about 20 minutes. I know you do justice within that. That is, if you need all of it to take us through, and maybe just about 10 minutes for the members to ask questions. We'll not keep you long. So, Governor, you can start as and when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Honorable Chair and honorable members. We always cherish the opportunity to share views on various issues that affect our country. This morning, we are before your committee, Chair, to address some of the salient issues you raised relating to the 2023 budget. There were 6 points that were put to us in relation to this. One was on the proposed monetary policy to underpin the 2023 budget. The second was factors underpinning the 2023 macroeconomic objectives. 3 was the likely effect of the projected fiscal deficit and the public debt management. 4 was the salient features of the IMF program and its likely impact on monetary policy in 2023. 5th, it was strategies to enhance economic resilience from external vulnerabilities. And finally, 6 was any information that may assist the committee to effectively interrogate the 2023 estimates of revenue and expenditure. Chair, we hope we have received our note
Yes.
on these matters. Allow me to first just make a slight correction or addition to the submission so that it reads well. This is really on the last page of our submission on the credit guarantee scheme. The very first line under there, which says access to credit, we would like to insert the following words, Chair, between the words so and affordable. That is affordable, and the more so the reading will be, and the more so that is affordable. I think without that it doesn't quite give you the indication of what it is.
Sure.
Yes. So having said that, Chair, honorable members, the theme for this year's budget, or next year's budget, sorry, is stimulating economic growth for improved livelihoods. The budget, as we see it, aims to address many challenges that our country are facing. Chief among these, we see unsustainable debt, low growth, and the poor conditions of people, living conditions of people. So there is a provision of a broad range of incentives and increased expenditure in priority areas which are aimed at stimulating growth, create jobs, and ultimately improve the livelihoods of the people is underpinning this budget from our reading of it. It is also our considered view that it lays a foundation for debt sustainability and future sustainable growth. Chair, we believe that if the key measures that have been incorporated in this budget are implemented effectively, we will contribute to the restoration of macroeconomic stability, boost growth, create jobs, help diversify the economy, and in turn improve the livelihoods of the people. We see in this regard that the steps that are being proposed are the right ones for sustainable growth. But having said that, we also see risks, Chair, that there are some risks to this growth. Among these are spillovers from protracted war in Ukraine and Russia. Already, Chair, actually yesterday, if you are following accounts across the globe, the oil producers are planning to reduce the amount of oil that they produce by up to 1 million barrels per day. So that has implications on the price of fuel, which has been coming down. So that's something which was not factored at the time of doing that, but that risk, I think, was hanging there, it's known. The other is that COVID hasn't quite left us. There are still some lingering effects of COVID, where some of the countries actually impose restrictions on people movement. So we are not out of the woods, so to speak, from that. Then, in reaction to what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, more specifically, some of the developed countries, they are tightening monetary policy, which in turn is tightening financial conditions. And for countries like ours, it means that there is a reversal in some of the flows that we were seeing. In particular, we do have people who participate in our government securities. I think yesterday, Honorable Chair, we are discussing the annual borrowing plan, and we pointed out that one of the areas where funding will be raised is from the issuance of government securities. But these colleagues come in, and when circumstances change, they move at will. So that is a risk that we must be aware of. But having said that, we still feel that the budget is pointing in the correct direction. Now let me just come to the specific issues that you asked us to provide our perspective on. Firstly, the aspect of monetary policy underpinning the 2023 budget. Honorable Chair, the Minister announced that we have a target of 6 to 8% for the 2023 budget. In our assessment, this target is consistent with the other macroeconomic objectives that were announced in the budget. In particular, the aspect of fiscal deficit of 7.7% on a cash basis, and limiting domestic borrowing to no more than 3% of GDP. In our view, these particular targets are essential in our implementation and effectiveness of monetary policy. So what we are saying is that if we stick to this, it should be possible for us to achieve the target that has been set. This is because high government borrowing, as we have seen, has these other implications of leading to higher yield on government securities. I think yesterday, Chair, for those who were in your other committee, we did share that when there is competition, the government is not sticking to the budget deficit, yield rates on government securities go up. And when they do affect other areas of the economy. In particular, one thing perhaps I should have also elaborated on yesterday, which I can now, is that in the supervision of financial institutions, there is what we say core liquid assets that every bank must have. Now, the composition of that includes cash, obviously, but importantly, instruments such as government security. I think we did explain, and we explain again, that government securities, in terms of risk weighting, there is a zero risk attached to that. A government may not pay at that point, but we eventually pay. So the risk from that is ranked zero. But I must hasten to say that with the default that we experienced last in 2020, this aspect was very, very much tested, because players were beginning to think, is the government going to meet this? But the point I'm making here, Chair, is that if we don't stick to the deficit that has been set up, there is that risk that can be realized. So the framework that we follow is forward-looking. You have noticed, honorable members, in our announcements, when we undertake monetary policy, we do give a statement which looks at where inflation is, what we see inflation will be over 8 quarters, that's 2-year horizon. We also highlight what we see are risks to that inflation, and then we make our decision on that basis. So this is what we mean by forward-looking framework, which prepares players in the economy that this is what is likely to come. Now, the signal, obviously, we use is the policy rate. Now, this policy rate becomes effective if other things are in order, and this is where I belabored the point on the government securities yield rates, because if they are too higher than the policy rate, then the policy rate loses its efficacy in terms of delivering on what we want to be delivered. So that's how we see this budget playing out in terms of monetary policy. Then you also asked the factors underpinning macroeconomic objectives. There are quite a number. One is the attainment of real GDP of at least 4% growth rate, that is. This target, Chair, many have commented that no, it's not very ambitious. Maybe you could have aimed higher. All very true, but you have to take into account the objective conditions where you are, because to achieve that, you have to do certain things. Now, if the conditions that you are in do not permit you to do some of those things, much as you want to grow higher, you will not achieve it. So that's the aspect that has to be taken into account. Look at all these other, I highlighted some of the risks that we face. So if those are at play or they come into play, even if you wanted the growth to be 10%, it will not happen. But we have, as a country, set ourselves 4% because looking at the objective conditions, we feel that's something we can achieve. So the idea is obviously set ambitious targets, but they must be realistic. You can't just set something which in the end, because when you don't achieve it, it also acts against you, because you get frustration, and then mobilization of efforts become frustrated as well. So what we are saying is that, yes, it will not address all the issues that we want addressed, but it's a step in the right direction, and we must build on it in the period going ahead. I think the Honorable Minister in the budget speech did come to this point time and again, to that we must continuously improve our performance from year to year, forever and ever. That's how we are going to achieve also our vision 2030 of becoming a prosperous middle income country. With the population growth shy of 3%, you need growth to be much higher than that on a per capita basis to do that. But as I said, you must be realistic. The other was, I think I already touched that on reducing inflation to 6 to 8% during this period. So let me move to the next macro objective, which is the maintenance of international reserves above 3 months of import cover. Here again, Chair, there have been some comments that no, it's not ambitious enough, because we're already at over 3 months of import cover. But the issue is this, Chair. This is actually the net position we're talking about. What do we mean by that? We mean that after you have taken account of all your other obligations, you must maintain this 3 months of import cover. And the import cover that we are talking about is not the historic, but what prospective imports are going to be. In other words, you have this growth that you have estimated of 4%. So that means the economy is growing. So you must keep pace with this growth, with your reserves also remaining at that. So it's a fluid figure. It's not static. You have to constantly see how you ensure that it is maintained. Now, what are the sources of that reserve builders? One, obviously, is to buy more foreign exchange in the market. But as we also indicated in our other interaction, when the central bank moves into the market, it's not an ordinary player. It affects other players' perceptions, actions. So we do this as what we term market conditions permitting, so that you minimize the adverse effects that can come out of your action. Now, if obviously we were to drive to get these reserves, we could do it, but what's the cost to the economy? That's what has to be balanced. The other source of this is obviously the program of gold purchase that we did embark on, but there again, it's not everybody who has gold to sell. And for us, for this to be meaningful, we have to pay for that gold in kwacha. Because if we pay in dollars, it means we're just substituting, we are not moving anywhere. So to find players who have gold of a bullion type is not as easy as it sounds. And if we go to Dore, which is the less purified gold, there is the aspect of also having it to be purified, which is additional cost that you have to do. So it's a balancing act, but we would be very happy to see many willing to sell that gold, and we pay in kwacha. And when we say we're paying in kwacha, it's not disadvantaged. We are paying at the prevailing market rate of the gold. The other way we accumulate reserves is these flows, be it in project support that the government gets or the loans that we contract. So that will help us to augment the reserves. But the point really we are making is that this may appear unambitious because where we are, but the point is that this is the net position after we have taken care of all the other obligations that we have. Then the other, before I leave that point, just to stress that for us to really be assured of higher reserves, we have to build on exports. And one aspect of this budget is to really stimulate diversified export sources. So if we did that, then we can, with all the confidence that we'll be able to get the money that we need. So with the falling copper prices, that's a challenge that has to be taken into account. We have also seen the volumes of copper production and export have more or less remained quite stagnant around 800,000 metric tons. So the idea, I think the minister has been on this point, that over the next 9 years now, we must reach the 3 million tons. I think he has given quite some information there on how others who were behind us have come and overtaken us. Why are we in that situation is the question that we must address. Then there was the issue of mobilization of domestic revenue to at least 20.9% of GDP. Now, here what we are saying that to get more revenue, growth is very important. And also the issues of compliance, administration. So that requires improving in terms of administration, human capital, technology. All these are important to do that. So ZRA is looking into that. So that's not an area which directly we are involved in, but we are in constant contact with ZRA, because, like I said, when we get the reserves that we want, we get from revenues or from the copper mining countries. So, companies, sorry. So, again, here, the risks that I highlighted on the growth apply to here. So, we have to navigate that carefully, but there is an improvement over the previous period. Now, the fiscal deficit of 7.7%, I think that I have already spoken to, but you made a very fundamental decision, honorable members, when you passed the Public Debt Management Act, number 15 of 2022, which really underpins how this area of our operation is to perform. Your oversight is extremely important. So I'll leave that one there. Then the last macro objectives was that of not limiting borrowing to no more than 3% of GDP. I think we already talked about the 15.6 billion kwacha, which is expected to be raised from the domestic market. Now, this compares very favorably to what it was last year. Last year, we are talking of 27.2 billion kwacha. So this is quite a significant reduction if you look at it from that angle. So we are alive also to the fact that as the government borrows, the aspect of access to credit by the private sector must also be preserved. Now, the likely effect of the projected fiscal debt and public debt management, here again we take comfort in the fact that you have these new measures, the act that was passed, the borrowing plan that we were looking at, the annual borrowing plan. All these well implemented should help us to contain the deficit and also get some growth that we are talking about. Then let me just briefly look at the salient features of the IMF program and its likely impact on monetary policy. Just to stress from the very beginning, which has been done by the minister also, that the ECF, which is the extended credit facility, is anchored on the 8th National Development Plan, and its main aim is to restore macroeconomic stability and support more resilient growth. Chair, that information on the program is available on the website. The ministry also has put a link to that, and provided the memorandum of economic policies, which lays out what the government is going to do. There is a letter of intent which was jointly signed by the minister and the bank to commit as to that this is what we are going to do. But I want to just stress that the IMF comes into being because the country invites it to come. You have challenges, balance of payment problems. Now, in our case, we have had also the debt problem. Now, the creditors that we owe billions of dollars, they are more comfortable to discuss when they feel that a solution to going forward is found. And what is that solution is really to get a macro framework that is consistent. So all those elements that I referred to, the macro objectives, are critical elements of forming a framework that is deemed consistent with a country which wants to attain moderate debt stress. So right now we are in debt stress, but we want to get out of that. And how do we get out? Is to get support from those that we owe. As we speak, colleagues are engaged in starting to look at how we can get that relief we need. So the debt sustainability analysis, which we talked about yesterday as well, is very important guide of where the adjustments have to be made in order to make our debt sustainable. So the IMF program, as it stands, is supporting our own ambitions to get our economy to grow, to address poverty levels in the country. So really, in a nutshell, that's what it means, but we have made a submission here which highlights some of those. Now, the aspect of, maybe let me just, because of the time, the other items which perhaps we did not quite stress, this is the aspect of macroprudential function. Chair, the new Bank of Zambia Act that you passed recently does state that the primary objective of the bank is price and financial system stability. But when there is a conflict between the two, price stability ranks first. Now, as we move forward, the financial stability aspect is critically important as well, because that's the arena where these policies play out. So if the financial sector is unstable, meaning that the financial sector is not able to perform its functions of, say, payment systems, its functions of intermediation, meaning that you bring savers and investors together, then you have a bigger problem. So we need to safeguard that at all times. There was a time when we were really knocking on this, when arrears were building up, but these now are being controlled. That is giving the financial sector space to breathe. So what we are saying, macroprudential, is, Chair, and up until 2008, 2009, before the global financial crisis, the focus of supervision of financial institutions, banks especially, was based on the soundness of the individual entity. You looked at where is it in health, there are parameters that we look at. But in 2008, 2009, that changed completely, because now you have to be aware the relationships with others. So when you see something happening, what might appear like remote, it could hit you. Look what is happening now, for example, in Ukraine. I'm sure many of us here didn't know where was Ukraine and what it was doing. But when now Russia invaded Ukraine, suddenly you realize that actually this is one country which was supplying a lot of things to the rest of the world. So this is what macroprudential, in terms of financial institutions, we do. Don't overlook. You may think that this is not systemically important, but it could surprise you, the linkages that it has. So that's the focus of this macroprudential function, to ensure that the entire system, not just the individual entities, are in good order. Then there's this other aspect, Chair, of the full implementation of the electronic balance of payments monitoring system. Chair, we have made a lot of progress in terms of improving data collection analysis, but there are still significant gaps. What we see is that we don't have a full handle on knowing what happens to the export earnings that we get. So at a global level, we'll record that we have a balance of payment surplus. But really, when you drill down, where is this? It's not easy to pinpoint. So we embarked on a project with the Zambia Revenue Authority, which we say EBOP, where we require that every exporter must record their exports through a local entity, which is the bank. That way, we will know with certainty that this was what was earned and this is where it went. Now, we are careful here not to invoke the feelings that we are trying to control, but the thing is, information is critical. You hear about illicit flows. How do you capture illicit flows if you don't have a mechanism to do that? Allow me, Chair, here to elaborate a bit more here. I think when we liberalized the foreign exchange market in the 90s, we have had the flexible exchange arrangement since 1991. This has served us well, but what happened when we did that? We threw away even mechanisms for collecting information. So along the way, whenever efforts were made to try and get that, people rise and say, no, you are bringing exchange control through the back door. And you, our political leaders, feel your hands are tied, and then you say, no, we can't do that. But what that has been doing is really not providing us the tools to be able to know a lot about what is happening. Because to make quality policy decisions, you need information. You need information that is of high quality. You need information in a timely manner. But if you don't have that, then any decision you make is based on the information you have. So the quality of the information upon which you make that information is critically important. So what we are saying now is that you may have seen the drive to say that we need people to register for tipping. Because when you do a tipping, that is one identifier which can bring a lot of information. Now you get some people say, no, why do you want me to get this? Until one day you are lumped with a bill which you don't know. That's when you realize that, oh, my identity actually matters. So there is a process also the government is working on this electronic identification. Is critically important. But before we do that, we need this tipping, because tipping is linked to the national registration card. So once we put that information into the system, we can see all the transactions one associated with that tipping is doing. So this is what we want, and we'll do it in such a manner that we'll have consultations with the newly established the private-public dialogue forum, so that everybody is at ease. It's not an intrusion, but also, you know, honorable members, the issues of anti-money laundering, the issues of financing of terrorism. We are not spared in that regard. And Zambia is an open economy, and the financial sector, that's when these things come through and play out. So I thought I should take this time to just give assurance to the member that this is what we are trying to do to get more information. It's for information. Transactions will continue being undertaken in the way they have been undertaken all along. Then the other aspect, Chair, one but the last, not the last, the maintenance of flexible exchange rate regime. It appears very trivial, but for those of us who are interacting with others, it's significant. Because Zambia is an open economy, as I have said. We are surrounded by 8 neighbors. The temptation for us actually to impose controls is very high at any given time. But as a country, we have resisted that since 1991. That's a remarkable position that we have taken as a people that no, we are not going to do this. Because look at it this way. When you have exchange control, it's like the way we are sitting here. We decide who gets and who doesn't get, based maybe on how they look, or you don't like them, you had a fight. But for the economy, it doesn't care where the contribution comes to grow. So that is inefficient allocation of resource. But the exchange rate too plays an important role in terms of accommodating shocks. When the exchange rate moves, for example, when it goes up, it depreciates, that is, it is sending you a signal that things are not in balance. So you start to take a closer look on what you buy. And that in itself introduces adjustment. The other thing is that you start to think, why should I continue, for example, importing? We used to import water and all that, but now we produce this, which means you are saving on the use of that foreign exchange. So that's an adjustment mechanism which often is not seen. Two, you have seen the government is moving away from procurement of fuel and other things. The simple fact of the matter is that when the government is involved in importing, the sensitivity to price is not as high. Because if I engage a bank, just as an example, to be the agent, the bank gets a cut in terms of the fee. So it's not quite the same if it were them who are buying this foreign exchange. So the sensitivity to the movement in the exchange rate is not there as much as it is if it was you spending your money. So we see that results in a high cost of doing business. So the flexibility of the exchange rate helps you to navigate that. Those who don't have that, they don't have that ability that we have using the exchange rate as a mechanism of adjusting to external shocks. So I thought I should just stress that point as well. Last but not the least, Chair, noting that credit to the SMEs is quite a challenge. We have all been bemoaning the fact that the SME sector in particular is badly affected because there is information asymmetry here. There are high risks, some real, some perceived, So, but at the end of the day, they feature in the pricing of the money that they get. So we felt that we needed to do something here as an institution to help mitigate this, but along with the government plans that are on the ground. So we have established what we call credit guarantee scheme. Honorable members, there is a credit guarantee scheme, limited company, the government, but it's in emphasis. So we will be working with such institutions to see how we can help to bring down the cost of borrowing to the small players. So this is the aspect. We have already signed on an MOU with what you call the National Advisory Board for Impact Investment. Now, this is an organization which is global, but it looks at by impact is looking at impact but in a sustainable way. Take into account issues of environmental sustainability, because now that's the way everybody is going, that whenever you lend, take account of the impact of that lending on the environment and so on and so forth. So, Chair, in conclusion, we just want to reiterate that we as an institution, we are committed to playing our role, and we entreat you, honorable members, that you also play your role for the good of our country. I submit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members, before we go into questions, I must indicate that I deliberately allowed the governor to comprehensively go through this document. Remember, I had said I'd given him about 15 minutes, if I stay almost 30 minutes. And he has, in fact, adequately handled all the items that which we had requested the bank to do. So in doing so, I will restrict in terms of the questions so that we allow the next witness to come in. So don't hammer me when I cut in terms of the questions. So honorable members, let's take 3 questions. Honorable Kambita, Siehan, Honorable Simunji. I'm looking at those who didn't ask in the first. Okay, so 3. So let's start with Honorable Kambita, Honorable Simunji, and Honorable Remember, and then we'll close.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll work very hard to make sure that I limit my question to getting the right points from the Bank of Zambia governor. Here, I would like you to assist us, Governor. I think in your comments on factors underpinning the 2023 macroeconomic objectives, you alluded to these issues to do with attaining a real GDP growth of 4%. And you went ahead citing the sectors that would actually contribute towards this. I'll be very particular. One of them, the mining sector. And you talked about, of course, the production that is envisaged. But this is an assumption that production will actually be on the rise, as envisaged in the next decade to hit about 3 million tons. Now, we still have an impasse in Mopani and KCM, which is unresolved. So these assumptions you are making here are based on the fact that the issue to do with the Mopani mine and the issue to do with KCM will be resolved within this period under review. So I would like you to make a comment there. Since you're privileged to sitting in these offices with the Minister of Finance, I would like you to make a comment on that, just in case we don't achieve any meaningful agreement to ensure that the impasse that exists between Mopani and KCM, the two, of course, separately, is resolved. Honorable Chairperson, with your indulgence, I also heard the Bank of Zambia talk about on page, I think there's some measures that are put in, what they are calling the a very good initiative. They are calling it what? On what page is that? On page 7. Yes. The EBOP. Now, the question I have about this, the electronic balance of payments monitoring system, the question I have about this is on how realistic it will be to achieve this going by the current environment of the way the legal system sits. Because you're aware, we are still struggling to know what these mining companies, international mining companies, actually extract and then they sell. When they sell, we are not sure of really the kind of foreign exchange they aim from selling that copper. The way the law sits now, what would be your suggestion in terms of us altering the law to ensure that we achieve this, which is a very good initiative? Because the way the law sits now, these people have all the freedom to go and sell the way they want. I had some pronouncement, I think, in the previous government when President Michael Satame, so he rest in peace, made some pronouncement. If anyone recalls, he said, look, we need to be checking when they sell, it should somehow money should come through maybe Bank of Zambia and that kind. I heard about that. But of course, as a layman, I don't know how that is achievable. I'm thinking in those lines about this, capturing this, especially for the mining sector where these exports are quite huge.
Okay.
I submit.
Okay.
I want your comment on that.
Honorable Sumunji.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, the second question from Honorable Kabita, that was my major question I wanted to ask. But I'll continue. Bank of Zambia Governor, my question revolves on the IMF deal. The past 10 years, our country was borrowing from the commercial, I'll say, what we call Kaloma in Zambia. Now we are moving into getting concessional loans from the IMF. There are sections within our country which are saying, yes, we can go and get concessional loans, but these loans from IMF will bring other effects on our citizenry. Please, I would ask you to please work on, tell us what effects these loans will have on our people. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Mutale.
Thank you very much, Bank of Governor. My question is on the debt sustainability. We've seen that there's a reduction in the debt repayments. I'm talking about the foreign one. And you just did indicate here that there's an engagement to try and see how we can negotiate with our current debtors. Now, this budget does not provide for in case we fail to reach an agreement with them. How do you averse or manage that risk that will come with this failure? And Chair.
Yes, sir.
The Bank of Governors spoke about, though I didn't get him speak about it too much, on the mining sector. The 3 million metric ton anticipation in 9 years to come. In this budget, I'm not seeing anywhere where we are trying to bring in the energy sector. How do we get to having green fields when the energy sector is not being helped or encouraged to invest more into the energy sector? I thank you.
Thank you. So let's do this. Let's allow Honorable Mungandu to fuse in a question, then those who fall close. Honorable members, there's a witness who has waited for more than an hour, so that we let them go. Honorable Mungandu.
Thank you, Governor. Governor, you are the indicated that I'll refer you to, I think, page 5, indicating international reserves, about 3 months income cover. Here you have explained how we can achieve this. To achieve this, the budget includes direct national purchases, foreign exchange, as conditions permit, and the local gold purchase program, expected dollar inflows, announcing the budget, and also expected foreign boost exchange, expected to boost foreign exchange reserves. But you have admitted a more assured way to continuously build reserves.
Honorable Mungandu, amplify your volume. I think tune the volume on the gadget there.
When
adjust it. No,
Thank you. Governor, you have admitted the last sentence. You have said a more assured way to continuously build reserves is to scale up exports and in a diversified way. For me, this statement, Chair, is very critical for us to create jobs, especially for the youths. And the safest and guaranteed way of building these international reserves is simply by embarking on industrialization, that is production. We need to produce. The demand for our goods and services in Kwacha, or foreigners have to buy our currency. They'll bring in dollars to buy Kwacha. That is what will strengthen Kwacha. And that is the most assured way for us to build reserves. Do you think this budget is creating incentives for local companies to invest in the industrialization as it stands? Because I know we are more talking of the mines. But the best way we can create employment, uplift the living standards of our people, is by engaging ourselves in production, in agriculture sector, ICT, energy sector. Do you think this budget is speaking to that? If the answer is yes, are you in a position to give us highlights within the minister's speech, because it's the one that we are analyzing now, and indeed in the yellow book, that incentives are being put in place in terms of production, in terms of transportation.
Let's allow the governor to respond. Governor,
Chair, let me finish. Let me finish. I want to make. Chair.
We have gotten your question. Governor, 6 minutes, then we close. Apologies, Honorable Mungandu. We have run out of time. Governor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you, honorable members, for the questions that have been posed. On the issue of the mining growth and mining sector, this is a plan. You are right. I mean, you have to make assumptions that certain things within. We can't stay with this problem forever. Otherwise, what are we doing? I think that's the question we must ask ourselves. Are we going to allow this to continue? I think there is a lively debate going on of what should be done. And I think the minister also has moved in adjusting the the fiscal regime. All this is an effort to get things going. So I think, Chair, the honourable member is on the right footing that the expectation is that we have to resolve these problems. Otherwise, why are we here? I will ask that question again, that we are here to resolve the issues that affect our economy. And if we see that this is a problem, we must not allow it to fester so that we can get the benefits that we need to get. So that's really a more straightforward answer. So those who are handling this, that's the assignment they have to ensure that we get this. Because if we don't resolve it, the 3 million tons that we are talking about will just be on paper. But for us to get to that target, we must clear all the obstacles that are standing in the way. Unfortunately, I'm not in that space where I'm saying that those who are dealing with that, I think that's the message, that find a solution. Just like you say, when you see things in my area, you say resolve them. That's what we should be telling each other, that you are standing in the way of us making progress. So what are you going to do? I hope that is helpful. Then the EBOP system. Honourable members, you recall you had not so long ago before you the Bank of Zambia bill. I think that was one of the things, and you see there in the aspect of monitoring balance of payment. That's the aspect. So, and also getting information. You gave us more power now to demand information from anybody that we deem can provide information. The Zambia Statistical Agency Bill Act, if I'm not mistaken, also imposes a requirement on the respondent to provide information. It's just that I think maybe enforcement of those matters hasn't been as strong. So there is a framework, in short, Honourable Member, to that aspect. So it's the resolve again among us Zambians, because I think we are perhaps sometimes our own enemies, because when some measures are taken, we are the first ones who are going to console others that no, you don't do, I'll help you find a way out. But this is a national issue. It's an issue which has been outstanding. Even our cooperating partners have seen that there is a problem here. I'm sure I've seen statements or stories of saying that here we are reporting a certain export amount, but the importer is saying another figure. Currently, the illicit flows from the African continent are over 80 billion a year. That's staggering. And then in the meantime, we go and borrow the same money at a higher rate. So why do we have these God-given resources not playing for us? I think that's the question we must ask ourselves. So yes, there will be resistance, but we must address it. Because if we don't, we'll continue complaining, and then our resource base is dwindling. If that's what we want to do, I don't think so. I think we need to do what we need. I referred earlier on why the oil exporting countries are reducing the export of their oil is to safeguard their own countries. So what about us? That's the question we must ask. But we must do it in a proper way. This is why I'm saying that we are going to do it in a market-friendly way, but we must get information, because we are not taking away your money. We are just saying, can we know what you made and where it is going? That's all we are asking. And the payment systems we have are second to none here, because in Zambia, when you want to pay money, it's T+2. Sometimes it's the same day you can get value for your money. You have all these instruments we have now, you can get your money in an instant. So that's the challenge we are willing to face if we get all the support that we need. Then on the IMF program, Honorable Smunj, a lot has been said, but I guess this issue is not going away. The IMF loan itself is zero interest. Okay? So that's the next you can get to getting a grant, and you have a 5 years grace period, and you pay it over 10 years. So I don't know if you just want to get a grant, and that's 1.3, almost 1.4, depending on the exchange rate of the SDR to the dollar. That is coming, and already we got part of that. So the loan itself is the best, one of the best you can get, short of getting a grant. Now, it does other things. It opens the way. The way international financial architecture works is that if you are to get any budget support, they want to be assured that you have a program which is monitored. Now, why do we have credit rating agencies? Credit rating agencies are doing the work for the lenders, but the IMF does it for the globe. And these agreements that we have signed, every 6 months we have a checklist, a monitoring to say, oh, we are on track. That gives confidence to others who are providing support that the money is not. You see why the others are not forthcoming in some of the things. Even yourself, Honorable, if you're giving relief to somebody, then they are going to give somebody else. Would you continue to give that relief? That's the issue. So this common framework is to try and bind us to say that no, give everybody comparable treatment. So this is what the framework is doing. So to the fact that we are doing, I think it's more in the political arena where there's this feeling that if you sign up to this, your degrees of freedom to make decisions are taken. But if that's what you really want to do, like we are saying that's what we want to do, what's the problem with that? Rwanda, for example. Rwanda has had many programs, but they are not scared to go to the IMF. All these countries you look at, you have made some progress. They have IMF World Bank programs. Kenya, Ethiopia, Ghana, or you name them. Vietnam, all these which are cited to a thing. But it's the resolve as the nationals, what do you want to do? And they give guidance to that. So that's the issue. So if we are bold and they fall through with our promises, nobody will tell you where to put the money. The IMF doesn't tell you put money there and put it. No, it's an envelope. That no, from what you are earning, from what you are raising from revenues, you have this gap from what you want to spend. So how do you do it? It's up to you now to find programs which you address that. So I hope that helps. Lastly, there was the issue of the energy sector, that there was nothing in the energy. I think there's a lot that has been already going on. We have been talking of energy cost reflective tariffs. We already had the adjustments in the electricity tariffs. There's the cost of service study, which has been going on. All those are aimed to reform the energy sector so that it plays its rightful role. So it's that you don't see it in the budget here doesn't mean that that has stopped. It's ongoing. So there are all these efforts which are ongoing within and outside. Remember, the budget speech is just highlights. The real budget that you are going to look at is the yellow book that you look at, the allocations that come about. So I hope you see efforts being made in that space as well. Finally, Chair, the point raised by Honorable Mungand, you are very right, and that's what we put it there. Yes, these other help. It's like you are sick, you get to the hospital, they will give you certain things, but to really get Honorable Kalira here will attest that as a medical doctor, it's your health, your eating habits, what you do, which will assure you to have a health life in all. So what we are saying here that yes, in the meantime, we can get this, but how do we make sure that tomorrow, the day after, we'll be able to get this? Is doing precisely what you are saying. So agriculture, if we do exports, look at Ukraine, what are we seeing? There's importation of wheat, importation of other grain. Can we produce that? And you see in agriculture, the gestation period, many of these things, is much shorter than you have in mining. You know, mining, to get a kilo of copper, how many years does it take to do that? Lots of years. But today, if we decided that we are going to do vegetables, we are going to do potatoes, within months, we'll get that harvest. So that's where we need to get our act together and take advantage of these known shortages in other countries. So I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Governor. We can continue. We can go on and on, but seriously, we have a limitation in terms of the time. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, in terms of the immunity ends here. So let's end here and wishing you the good of the rest of the day as you continue implementing some of these functions. We are delighted once again to have you. All the best for the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Sorry I forgot to ask, but I suggested that bilateral, and you'll be coming to Livingston.
So more
okay, so we'll see you there. Thank you.
28th. Yeah.
Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Continue watching Parliament TV, a station that is dedicated to bring Parliament closer to you.
If you've ever needed a reason to add movies to your subscription, how about 3?
Gotta get the job done. The whole squad coming through. You can't believe what you see. I'm doing me, move to my own beat.
Add Movies has got you sorted.
Ready?
Mnet Movies 1 has got something for everyone to enjoy. From comedies to dramas, larger-than-life blockbusters, and everyone's favorite superhero.
Hello, Peter.
Mnet Movies 2 non-stop thrill ride of nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat, can't get enough action.
I got you. Don't worry about it.
Mnet Movies 3 brings you your favorite stars up close and personal.
I do so love perfect timing.
And for the kids,
Poke it up, poke it up, poke it up, Afro.
get yourself Ad Movies for the whole month.
You might want to hop in.
It's your movie moment with DSTV.
Wait is over.
Good morning.
Thank you. First and foremost, let me sincerely apologize. We have kept you more than is necessary. You have waited for more than 2 hours. Yeah, we had some issues of overrunning in terms of our programming, but still more you will remain our key partner in these issues, budget issues. So you are appearing before the expanded planning and budgeting committee, where we are looking at the revenue and expenditure for 20 honorable members for 2023. And we'll go like this without much ado. We'll allow you to introduce yourselves. The members of this committee will introduce themselves maybe during the time of interactions, questions and the like, so that we can maybe catch up with time. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity as and when you are appearing before this committee. So meaning whatever you say before this committee can never be used against you in any court of law. So take advantage of that, only to the extent that if you were to mislead us deliberately, then the same Cap 12 works against you. Also to indicate that we are live on Parliament TV. So let's start with introductions. You can do the introductions.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Members of Parliament. My name is Malindi Msoni Chatora, and I'm a researcher from the Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research. I'm standing in today for our Executive Director, Dr. Harry Mpuku. I'll allow the rest of the team to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Members. My name is Mbeo Kalikeka. I'm also a researcher at ZIPA. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Honorable Members. My name is Mulima Nyambe Muvanga. I'm a researcher at ZIPA. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Members. My name is Shimuku Nkumanchishi. I'm a researcher at ZIPA.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning, Honorable Members. My name is Mr. Lobwalia. I'm also a researcher at ZIPA.
Okay, thank you very much. Is one the other side? Okay.
Good morning, Honorable, and good morning, everybody else. My name is Liana Chikwekwe, and I am a research assistant from ZIPA.
Thank you. And my name is Fred Jatila, Member of Parliament for Momba constituency, also the chairperson for the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee. I'm even worried to mention issues of time. I don't know how much time you do need to do the presentation. Are you able to do it like in 15, 20 minutes?
We plan for about 15 to 20 minutes.
15 minutes?
Actually.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fine. So let's start.
Thank you. I would just like to show gratitude on behalf of our Executive Director, Dr. Mpuku, for this opportunity to contribute to this discussion. We're going to structure our presentation in 4 parts. In the first part, I'll look at quickly the governance pronouncements, and then I'll invite Mr. Mbere Kalikeka to look at the key fiscal and macroeconomic measures. I'll then invite Mr. Shimu Manchinshi to also look at the key measures in the real sectors, and then we'll conclude with some...
sorry, I see a hand.
Yes, Chair, I have an issue here which I want to bring. We have not been told why the Executive Director is not with us. We are dealing with researchers only.
Okay.
Where is the head not here?
Are you able to respond to that?
Yes, so I would like to apologize on his behalf. He had a competing demand. He had something happening at the same time, so he had to attend to that.
Okay. Honourable members, do you want us to break briefly? Okay, our witness, you can maybe excuse us for 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parliament TV, the station that is devoted and dedicated to broadcast live the parliamentary proceedings. Find out how your representatives are representing you in the House. Learn about various issues pertaining to the functions, operations and activities of the Zambian Parliament. Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you.
On Oyo constituency, we profile one of the most prominent constituencies in the country.
The constituency is facing a lot of challenges, but the major ones are, number one, poor road network, communication network, no financial institutions, no colleges, no electricity, and inadequate infrastructure in both education and health.
bayuthi nabo onayika mulandu n'obwalwa nabana mayo bonse nabaponenamu nsunko obwalwa shena nashibonaula
ekyo ndeko nkomesha ndeko obuyantanshi kuno kwanga obukinjeko kuno mukushi is a farm block and then mukushi no turalimako ifintu things sana so no misevo poor road networks otu challenge tukwete fyo tweshingwana na yena.
In Mukushi, we watch Parliament TV.
Watch Parliament TV, the TV that brings Parliament closer to our community.
Parliament TV kudia, today
Keep watching Parliament Television. Keep watching Parliament Television, a station that brings Parliament closer to you.